Revere, and welcome to our show, the Revere Veterans and Community. I have the Director of Veterans Affairs, Nick Boer. Nick, welcome.
Thank you, Morris.
Nick is here with some good information for you, and he's going to be talking about veterans benefits, for the deadly benefits, I should say, and also payments for veterans. So go ahead, Nick.
Well, I'd like to start talking about being eligible for veteran benefits. First of all, there's many benefits that veterans are eligible for. Some are not eligible for all the benefits. So there's a fine line. If any veteran receives any notification from the VA, open it immediately and read it. And for some reason you don't understand what they're asking, and should I make the form out or should I not make the form out, it could affect your pension or your compensation if you don't act on it. So the thing is first of all, the VA has a program of VA compensation. VA compensation is for veterans who were injured while in the military, whether it be in combat or in peacetime. You had a job. A lot of the guys that were in the ships during World War II, they didn't have the ear protection. So now they're in their late 80s and early 90s, and their hearing is going.
What'd you say?
Yeah, exactly. And you were in the Army.
Yep.
So.
In the intelligence. Why don't you tell him that too?
Well, he was in intelligence, but that's questionable. No, I love you.
I love that thing. Thank you.
But it's a lot of the compensation is dependent on how severe your disability is. And I just had a fellow, he applied for VA compensation. He came back with 0%. It's still at 0%, you're disabled. It's just not as severe enough to receive monetary a check from the VA. So, and the thing is that with the compensation, you have to have been injured while in the military. And I got people coming in and they say, well, I never went to sick call for it. I fell off the truck and I broke my ankle and for some reason they didn't go to sick call. I don't know how that can happen, but these are the stories I get. And anyway, now they're having difficulty walking. The thing is, we have to have a connection between your injury and the military service. So that is how veterans get compensated.
Can I ask you a question on that, Nick? When you say a question, in other words, they have to have a record of you that you had something done while you was in the military service that later on, like let's say once you're out of the service, and that injury that you had in the military service now gets worse and worse and worse. How does that work out, if I may ask you?
Well, it works out like if you have, as I said about the tinnitus, the hearing problem, the ringing in the ears. A lot of guys, as I said, in the Navy with the big guns or tankers, guys who were in the tanks, they didn't have ear protection,
right, and
their hearing is now getting progressively worse.
And they can blame that on
they can blame that on the military, because of your job. Now, I was in personnel. I can't really connect tinnitus or a hearing problem with my job. The guys who are in the tanks or in the ships or worked in engine rooms and that type of were on the firing lines, there's a connection. So this is where the VA would come in and say, okay, I can see your job was in a position where it could have contributed to your hearing loss. So that's the thing. And once you go on sick call while you're in the military, it's on record, it's on file. So it's either in the ship logs or in the VA or in the doctors, the medical doctors, hospital.
Would it be on your discharge as well?
It won't be on your discharge.
It won't?
It will not be on your discharge. Okay. But if you get, if you apply for benefits, they could go. The review board would go before the would get into the VA system and see the medical system and see that you were treated for hearing loss or bleeding in the ears or whatever the case may be. So now you have a connection with the military. So that's you have to work with your veteran service officer if you have any questions. Sometimes if you don't understand, you just put it aside, and then you find out that they have stopped your compensation. You say, why did they stop it? Well, you didn't provide the information that they were looking for.
I have to tell you something. I got a letter from the VA. I got it home. They wanted a survey. And the letter reads they would like to know, you know, everything, how I feel about the VA, except one thing. I got the letter. There was no survey in there to fill out. So when I get home after this show, I'm going to call them up and ask them for the survey. I don't know if that would affect anything, but...
Well, I don't know, depending on what the survey is.
I have no idea because the letter just says, please fill out the survey.
And just make sure it's from the VA and never give your Social Security number. Never give your Social Security number.
They already know it anyway.
That's fine if they already know it.
No, I mean the VA knows it.
Well, that's fine, but you don't know where that letter came from. So, I mean...
It says VA right on the top.
That's fine, but if there's any question, a lot of times there's a lot of scams going on.
Oh yeah, we're going to get into that
one. And they're asking for information that your Social Security, and they'll do a number on you. So, but that's compensation. You have to note, you should put in, come into the office and see whatever city or town you live in. If it's in Revere, you come to my office and we'll go over the forms. Some of the forms are they just send them out at random. And they really don't pertain to you. So, and you don't have to fill them out, but others you do. So you have to read it. If you don't understand, as I said, call the office and make an appointment, and we'll take a look at it.
Here's a question for you. These people that get out of the military, when they were in the military, they got injured. They got out, they had a full-time job, they're retired now, they get a pension, or they might get Social Security and a pension. Does that affect them in any way to get that extra benefit if they apply for it?
No, it won't affect if you...
in other words,
if you were in the military, I mean, if you're retired now and you get Social Security and you get whatever pension, that VA compensation is a separate.
Oh, it has nothing to do with those.
It has nothing to do with your civilian life.
Okay.
Okay. VA compensation is for when you were injured while in the military.
Thank you.
And it's tax exempt.
Oh, okay.
So that's one thing. You don't have to worry about taxes. So paying any taxes to the back to the government, because they give you the money and then they take it back from you. And, well, the government has been known to do that, though. But
which government are you talking about?
Yeah, I know it. But these are things. It's very important that folks do read what they receive in the mail.
Can I say something about the VA? I go there myself a lot, and let me tell you, thank them for what they do, not only for me, but what they do for the veterans of the United States. They do a terrific job in most cases.
Well, they do a great job, especially here in Massachusetts. They do a wonderful job. We're very fortunate here, and we have Bedford Medical Center and the Boston Medical Center.
West Roxbury.
West Roxbury. We got
Jamaica
Brockton.
Plain, yep.
I mean, and the people are very, very nice. I just took a veteran down to Bedford for some treatment.
From Revere?
From Revere, and he was in need to get into the VA system. I took him down. They treated him. He couldn't believe how well they treated him in the eligibility office, and then they took care of him. He had a little medical problem. They took care of it right away. So.
Can I say something about that, Nick? If
Sure.
I may? I went to the VA about 2.5 weeks ago to the ortho, and they examined the teeth and everything else, and they found 2 lesions in there. And the dentist, Dr. Moore, he said, "I like to take a biopsy." So they gave me a needle to numb the stuff, and they should. There was no pain, very gentle. They took a biopsy, and 2 weeks after the biopsy, he was nice enough to call me and says, "You don't have to come down on the date that they made my appointment." He says, "Approved. There's no problem there." So that's how good the doctors are today, which I never used to get calls from the doctors, what I do now.
Well, as I said, we're very fortunate here in Massachusetts, anyhow, and even down in Rhode Island, the VA takes very, very good care of the veterans. Some of the other states have been having their problems, but Massachusetts is very, very good to the veterans, the VAs. And you have to get into the VA system in order to receive treatment from the VA hospital. Every veteran should be in the VA system.
And they come through you to get into the system?
They can go online and get the form, and if they don't understand it, then they can come to me. I'd be more than happy to help them out. And what they do is they take the form to the VA. The form is called the 1010 Easy, EZ.
And they can do that online too?
You can do it online, but you go to the VA, you take that form to the VA, they'll take your picture, and 10 days to 2 weeks, they'll send you a card in the mail.
Yep, you're right. The new cards have a code on this,
right.
So nobody can fake it.
Right, and they even have the branch of your service on the card too. So, I mean, it's good, and you may never need it, but at least you're in the system, and it kind of works as an ID card when you go to Lowe's and Home Depot also and get the discount.
I used it there as a...
So, I mean, they'll accept that at Lowe's and...
It's a veteran's discount.
Yes, so you get your 10% discount.
Right.
Could add up to a lot of money, but they're very, very good in the hospital, and they treat the veteran with the respect they deserve. So we're very fortunate.
Right. Now I want to get into the sad part of this program. The death benefits, you wanted to mention something about them?
Yes. Before we go on to the death benefits,
Yep.
I would like to also, as I said, there's compensation and there's pension.
Right.
Pension is income related. If you're low income veteran, okay, and this is just for the veteran, not for the spouse. If you're low income, you could apply, say you receive $800 from Social Security. That's all you receive. So you could come in the office and I can apply for what is called a VA pension. A VA pension is for seniors with low income. And they'll pay $1,085, okay, instead of the $800. You can't collect both Social Security and pension at the same time. You have to either collect the pension, VA pension, or Social Security. You can't collect both of them.
So you take whichever is greater.
Whichever one is greater. So if you're collecting $800 from Social Security, you're better off
With the 1,085.
with $1,085, and you know, a lot of people are concerned with Mass Health. Well, will that put me over the line from Mass Health? And the answer is no. You'll still be low enough income to be eligible for Mass Health. So, you know, these are little things, but I have to stress, you cannot collect both Social Security and VA pension because they're both federal programs, and it's called double dipping, and they'll
Right.
catch you.
So the thing is, Nick, excuse me, if you're, in other words, if you're not getting the $1,085 now from your Social Security, you're better off going with the VA. But I was going to ask you, but you're going to answer. Aren't you going to lose some benefits somewhere along the line?
No, because
You're still going to be on that low income level
you
with that?
still be under the
Radar?
The low income, and you're still considered low income. You're still eligible for financial assistance from my office, which provides financial and medical support for veterans. So as long as you're under that $1,085, yeah,
And the pension has nothing to do with this?
the pension has nothing to do with what?
Collecting, I mean, that's Social,
You cannot collect Social Security and a pension.
okay.
So that's one thing. That's another thing is you can't if you have compensation. Okay, a lot of the young veterans who are in the National Guard or the reserves, you cannot collect compensation, and you cannot if you're receiving drill pay, because if you, again, it's called double dipping, and they'll come down on you, and you'll have to pay all the money back,
Plus the interest, I think.
plus the interest
Yeah.
and penalties, and so a lot of the younger guys who are in the guards or the reserves, and they receive drill pay. Okay, they go away for their 2 weeks, and you cannot collect both. So you gotta make sure that you notify the VA if you're. Well, again, what you have to do is look what you receive for drill pay and what you receive for compensation. Generally, you take the drill pay, the compensation, you'll put on hold until comes a time in your life when you are no longer in the reserves or going to drills and receiving income from that. So
That's good to know.
I've had a lot of guys get into trouble because of it. Financial trouble I'm talking about because of it, and then they're holding my check from the VA, and I was counting on it. Well, that's the reason why they're holding it. So it is very, very important that I stress that you cannot collect both drill pay and compensation at the same time.
Okay.
And the pension is a different story. Generally, you're too old to be in the reserves or the Guard, so the pension is only because of low-income veteran.
And the spouses get no benefits out of that.
The spouse, no.
Okay.
And once the veteran passes away, unless arrangements in certain circumstances, okay, the spouse could receive benefits, but as general rule, once the veteran passes away, the compensation stops.
Right. I was under the impression, Nick, excuse me, that once the benefit the veteran passes away, if the spouse does not get married, that she could collect?
It depends on the disability. Okay.
Okay.
It depends on what the disability and what arrangements the veteran made to take care of the spouse. There's numerous situations where the veteran, the spouse could receive benefits, widow's pension type of payment, but it's very, very, there's so many different ways that they could change or not get any compensation. So it's best to, and every person is different.
I have a question for you on this one that was given to me. Does the veteran organization, if a veteran dies and the spouse cannot afford to put a gravestone or a plaque, does the Veteran Administration take care of that?
Yes, they do.
Oh, could you give us a little?
You have a choice of a plaque, a bronze plaque. Usually you see them at the cemetery at the foot of the graves.
Right.
And it'll have the individual's name and his religious status,
Right.
and his World War II, and it'll have information on that. And usually these plates are free. They're provided by the government. We have to apply for it. What you do is you come into the office and we fill out the form. You take the form to the cemetery. They agree on installing it once they receive it, because they don't ship it to us or to the spouse or
It goes right to the
applicant.
cemetery?
Goes right to the cemetery. And generally, I know Holy Cross, each cemetery charges a different amount of money, and Holy Cross is probably the least expensive. I think they charge somewhere in the vicinity of $100 to install it, because they have to prepare the ground for it and make sure they install it in cement. Otherwise, this way it won't be.
What about the cemetery in Bourne? Do they charge too?
No. Cemetery in Bourne handles everything. So if you get buried in a national cemetery in Bourne, or the state has two veteran cemeteries, one in Washington and the other one is in Agawam, and you don't have to worry about any
Maintenance or
any
anything?
maintenance. They maintain it, and
That's pretty good.
if you're buried in either one of them, they provide clergy, and the veteran is buried with all the honors that they deserve.
That's great.
And
That's
they
great.
provide the flag, and they cut the clergy, as I said, and the grave marker. So if you ever been, I know you've been down to Bourne, and
A few times.
yeah, so it is very impressive. They do the VA cemetery department. They do a wonderful job maintaining both the VA, the national cemeteries, and the state maintains the state veteran cemeteries.
That's good. Nick, we got about 3.5 minutes. Take 2.5 of that and just leave me a minute and talk about whatever you wish to now. We were going to talk about the death benefits.
Okay, death benefits, we wanted to get into death benefits.
We could save that for another program, more elaborate, but just give us a brief synopsis.
Well, just if anyone has any difficulty, if a veteran is indigent and they have no means of paying for a funeral or being buried, what I do is I will make arrangements with the funeral director to make sure that the veteran is buried with military honors, and buried, usually now they're going to be buried at a state veteran cemetery, because we have a lot of room for the state, although the VA down in Bourne has increased the amount of space now down there. But generally, indigent veteran will get buried in a state cemetery.
Right. Charlie Mackin, who happens to be a World War II and Korean vet, and myself, were called upon one time because there was nobody to support him at the church and at the soldiers' home. They needed two of us to honor a veteran that passed away, and we were honored to go down there and do that for them.
Well, they do a wonderful job, and the soldiers' home, they're very, very good to their veterans. They have a place in Woodlawn Cemetery for their residents to be buried. So they do a great job under Cheryl Poppy, who is the superintendent there.
So that's great. So, excuse me, Nick, I got to say we have about a minute and a half left, so I want to say thank you for coming down to talk about us, but I want to save the future that we were going to talk about for another show so we can expand more on it.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the death benefits and make sure that we at least inform you what benefits you may be, the veteran is eligible for, the family is eligible for death benefits.
So the next time we see, you'll bring us more up to date on it then.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Thank you for coming then, Nikki, and God bless you for the nice work you do for us here in the city of Revere. So I want to say we're lucky, really lucky to have you, so thank
we're
you.
lucky to have you to do these shows and get the word out.
That's what we're here for.
We're trying to do as much as we can to get the word out so the people know.
Right. And like I always used to like to end the show, God bless you, Nikki, and take good care of you and all our veterans, especially the ones overseas serving. God bless our troops, military troops, and our citizens of Revere, but most of all, our great country, the United States of America. And I'd like to close by making sure that the public and the schools, the public places and schools, keep the Pledge of Allegiance in the public places and the schools, and never, never take that away from us. That's what I, as a World War veteran, fought for, and that's what these kids out there are fighting for now. Thank you.